Hej och välkomna tillbaka till den här temadagen Mjukvara här på Erik Bank. Very warm welcome back to this the continuation of this day of presentations here regarding the theme of software. Now we have Anand Srivatsa. Welcome. You're the CEO of Tobii. Very warm welcome and
thank you so much.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It is fantastic to be here in front of all of you, both present in the room as well as over the camera and digitally over the internet. It's a very special day for us today at Tobii. In fact, today is the day that our sister company, Tobii Dynavox, started trading on the Nasdaq Stockholm. And personally, for me, I am now officially able to say that I am CEO of New Tobii. So a really good and important day for us as a company personally as well. And so I'm really delighted to share with you the vision that we have for Tobii going forward and give you a better sense of who we are as a company and why we're so excited about this opportunity. But first, I think it's great to actually start and talk about the past of Tobii, because Tobii is a very well-established company already. We were founded in 2001. We celebrated our 20-year anniversary earlier this year. We are based out of Sweden, a Swedish company with headquarters up here in Danderyd. We've been listed on the Nasdaq Stockholm now since 2015. And starting today, of course, we trade separately, independent of Tobii Dynavox. Today, we are now a company of slightly more than 600 employees worldwide, with a substantial portion of our employee base outside of Sweden. We have sales and regional offices all across the globe. And one of the big things that we are quite proud of is, along with our technology leadership, we have a substantial IP portfolio that we have built in the 2 decades that we've been in business. So we have a great leading portfolio of about 700 patents granted and in filings, as well as, of course, our technology and market position in the space as a global leader in eye tracking. That's the foundation for the company that we are building. That's the basis for which we move ahead forward into the future. Now, as New Tobii, the other thing I wanted to emphasize is that we actually have a very strong track record of growth. If you look at our pro forma historical financials for this particular constellation, we have demonstrated very high sustained growth in the years prior to the pandemic. As you can see on the chart behind me, we had 20% organic growth from the years 2014 all the way through 2019. And of course, there was a break in this trend in the last 2 years as our business was impacted pretty substantially by the COVID pandemic. And this is because one of our biggest areas of focus today, the largest portion of our business now, is enabling customers to conduct scientific research and research into customer behavior. And for that kind of research, you really need to do these studies in person. And during a pandemic, of course, that kind of business is very difficult to conduct. What we're really proud of now, looking at 2021, is we are actually getting to the stage where our business is normalizing. We're getting back to our regular business metrics. Our execution levels are back at 2019 levels. And you can see that actually with our results that we displayed in Q3. We were up 26% organic growth, revenue year on year. So we're starting to see our business dynamics change, us responding to the realities of the pandemic. And of course, in many parts of the world, the effect of the pandemic has started to mitigate. People are starting to get back to work. Universities are back and open. With this foundation, the technology we have and our business execution, we are very much now looking towards the future of the company we intend to become. So in order to describe that, I think it's quite important to talk about where Tobii fits in the larger context of the technology world. And that, of course, is quite easy to paint in this new company that we're in, Tobii, separate from Tobii Dynavox. First of all, we are part of a field called human-computer interaction. And this field has a decades-long rich history of enabling machines to communicate with humans on human terms. It has taken us from punch card interfaces to keyboards to mice to 3D graphics. That's the domain that Tobii operates in. Where we have operated from our history is actually in one sub-area of the space that we call computer vision. And computer vision is typically focused on enabling machines to better understand the world or humans with the use of cameras. And hopefully all of us today see the huge potential of computer vision in areas like self-driving cars. This is a foundational technology that is being deployed in scale. Now, Tobii as a company was actually operating in one area of computer vision, and that was eye tracking. That was actually what our founders started the company on, with a vision that they could change the way that people engage with a computer or control a computer by using the movement of their eyes. But in the last 2 decades, we've expanded our capabilities, and we have continued to go and deploy those technologies under the nomenclature eye tracking. Now, if we look at what we've done over the last 2 decades, this picture gives you a better sense of where we've progressed. We started with this core signal eye tracking. That's the bubble that you see on the bottom left. But over time, we've expanded our offerings in the core signal realm by bringing out other signals that we can derive by images of people's eyes, by processing the images of people's eyes, or in some cases, processing the images of people's faces. Signals like eye openness or metrics about your pupils, to metrics that you get from images of people's faces, like head pose or presence or identification or facial landmarks. So that's one dimension that the company has expanded into. The second dimension that we've expanded to, we call attention signals. And these are signals that you can derive by extracting value or combining the core signals that you see underneath. And these are signals, for example, that tell you if a user is looking at a particular spot in the room or on a screen. We call that fixation. Or you can determine if a user's eyes are making fast involuntary movements, saccades. Or if a user is drowsy or distracted. We can even assess a user's emotional state. Now, over the last 2 decades, we've continued to use the term eye tracking against all of these areas. But fundamentally, if you take a step back and look at what we are delivering much more than eye tracking. And we think the term attention computing is the right term to describe the ambition of the company and the value of the technology that we deliver. Now, if you look at the technology that is needed to go and deliver eye tracking, there are multiple components that make that up. In the first instance, you actually need capabilities around hardware, either custom designed or something that you can get off the shelf. And typically, these systems are made up of illuminators, cameras, or processing elements. And what they do is they take images of people's eyes or their faces, and then they are the compute elements that allow you to go and derive signals from them. The next set we've talked about already, which is this concept of these core signals. And these are signals that are processed from those images on the processing elements that are in the system. And these are the base signals that we deliver, a core part of Tobii's offerings. Then we get to the next stage, which is, again, we talked about combining and extracting value from the core signals. And these are the attention signals that we can derive on top. But these on their own are still not enough for an end customer to get value from them. These core and attention signals move towards what we call user value, which is actually how a user or an application can actually derive value from the technology we deliver. So in some cases, for example, we are enabling a device to be more power efficient. And so the user value would be power saving. In some cases, we enable a car to alert a driver that they are not ready to drive the car. Maybe they're drowsy or distracted. We can provide a signal that can indicate to the driver that they need to change their behavior in the car. And there are many, many more of these user values. The fundamental takeaway that we have when we see this picture is as we build core signals, as we build attention signals, we're able to multiplicate the amount of user value that we can go serve. And that is actually how we create value in this marketplace. If we up-level one level up on how attention computing is being harnessed, we think that it actually is harnessed to deliver 3 types of value to 3 different types of stakeholders. If we start in the middle, when we look at users who use devices that harness attention computing, we are able to deliver them with incredible experiences. Experiences that are much more immersive, much more natural, when they can interact with technology in a very intuitive way, the way that we interact with each other. If you then go to the example on the right, enabling innovative devices, this is the value that we deliver to companies who are including our technologies to build better devices, OEMs in this example. We enable manufacturers to build more capable personal computing devices, more power efficient and higher performing virtual reality headsets, for example. We're even able to make them deliver more safe medical equipment. So there's a variety of use cases from an OEM perspective where they can harness attention computing to enable innovative devices. But then the example on the left in some cases is maybe the most powerful impact of how we can deliver attention computing and harness it, which is to deliver profound insights that can have huge impact on people's lives and industries as a whole. Technologies that we deliver in some cases are being used to assess medical conditions early, conditions like autism at infancy, to determine if we can find early markers of Alzheimer's and Alzheimer progression, to even being able to go and assess reading levels for children objectively and in a broad-based way to help people have better educational outcomes. If we can unlock these profound insights that we can learn by understanding human behavior through attention computing, the opportunity is immense for the value that we can create for society as a whole. So again, three major ways that attention computing are unlocked for value into the different stakeholders we have. We enable technologies to unlock profound insights that can impact society as a whole. We enable users with incredible experiences, and we help OEMs deliver innovative devices. Now, if you're following Tobii, you may have some examples of how this is used. I want to make this a little bit more concrete. How exactly is attention computing used by different stakeholders? Our sister company, Tobii Dynavox, that just listed today, is using our technology to help disabled people get access to the voice, to help them empower themselves and reach their true potential if they're unable to communicate with other means. They do that through attention computing. Hopefully, people who are following Tobii understand this use case pretty well. In the past, we've also talked about examples where we can make virtual reality devices much more robust and better. They become more power efficient. They deliver much better visual experiences. We, in fact, think that our technologies, attention computing, are a foundational element for virtual reality headsets going forward. The third example that you may be familiar with as well is our efforts around scientific research. The picture that you see on the slide now is our Tobii Spectrum research instrument being used to help assess if an infant is predisposed to autism or showing early signs of autism. Again, this is a phenomenal use case because diagnosing autism early means that you can actually go and support the individual much earlier and make sure that society can go and help them be more productive by diagnosing a condition like this even before a child can actually communicate with words how they're feeling or what they actually perceive. So this is a super powerful example of how attention computing is used to unlock profound insights. But the reality is attention computing has a tremendous amount of use across a huge range of verticals and applications because we believe that attention computing enables devices and companies to better understand human behavior and preference. And so if you look at other examples, our technologies are used for consumer research to decide if your store is assorted properly. It's used in PC gaming to make gaming more immersive and more interesting for users, and many, many, many more. We believe that attention computing will indeed be ubiquitous. It will be all around us. It is part of a natural evolution of how machines want to interact with humans, and the fact that it enables us and applications to better understand humans and human behavior means that industries around the world in different vertical applications will pick up these technologies. So this is a pretty bold claim. Attention computing will be ubiquitous. But what's the state of the market today? Today, we see attention computing being harnessed in 6 major market opportunities, and we're seeing accelerated adoption in these use cases. We see use cases in gaming, where our focus for the last 5 or 6 years has been to drive the use of our technologies in personal computing. And we're starting to see the first instances of changes in user behavior, where users who use our technology are now demanding support for these technologies in games. That's a major shift and something that indicates to us that our strategy is working and ready for scale. One of our big focus areas has been behavioral studies and research. And this covers both what people do in scientific universities, like diagnosing if they can detect autism early or helping to go study Alzheimer's better. But it also includes the work that we do around consumer research, where people are interested in truly understanding human preference, whether it's for packaging, store layout, decision methodology, etc. We also, of course, see opportunities in education and training, in automotive, in extended reality, and healthcare. And what we believe the signs of these market opportunities, the increased adoption, what they're telling us, is that it is a phase where there's increased experimentation, increased adoption, and while it's difficult for any of us to point to a specific inflection point, we think that these are signs that we can take that an inflection point is coming nearer. I want to spend a few minutes to talk about one of these examples and something that has changed a lot over the last year or so. So hopefully, most of you now are familiar with the term metaverse. This word is not super old in the technology lexicon. In fact, a couple of years ago, a few set of people may talk about it. And now I think it's super hard to find people who don't talk about this word. This is a really apt quote from Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic Games. The metaverse is going to be far more pervasive and powerful than anything else. If one company gains control, they will, of course, be super duper successful. The interesting thing is this quote is actually not from this year. This is from 2016. This is a few years ago. Tim Sweeney and his company, which makes the game Fortnite, is an early mover in the metaverse world. They understand that building communities, having people play online, can change how people interact. And I can tell you personally, I have great experience on that because my son plays Fortnite every single day. And a year ago, when he told me that there was a Travis Scott concert in Fortnite, I was very confused. There's a live concert, invite only, or for the community that's in there, doing a live musical event inside this digital world. It is changing how we collaborate in ways we can't fully comprehend, but it is absolutely happening. The great thing for Tobii is we are like a picks and shovels company for the metaverse. We enable the metaverse to be more impactful, to be more immersive, to have higher quality. So how do we do that? We do that first and foremost by being integrated into devices, into the devices of the future, both virtual reality and augmented reality headsets. Our core technology is integrated into these devices, and today we have multiple OEMs that ship products with our eye tracking technologies baked in. What our devices help these manufacturers deliver, what our technology enables them to deliver, is a much better visual experience. And what you see on the bottom of the screen is how we enable that in these devices. It turns out that our eyes only perceive a very small field of view in high quality. Our brain fills in the rest. Today I'm looking at all of you. I feel like I can see in high quality in the entire room. It's not true. I can only see where my eye looks. The rest of it gets filled back in with my brain. Now take this problem into virtual reality. You have two sets of screens very close to your eye, very broad field of view, and our desire is that virtual reality should look like this. Full retina resolution everywhere. And there's two ways to do it. One is to actually render in that resolution for the entire field of view, and that costs a tremendous amount of compute. It makes the system heavy, hot, more expensive. Or what you can do is with eye tracking, only render that portion of your field of view that you can actually see. And what it looks like is the picture on the bottom. That small circle is actually rendered in high resolution. The rest of it is rendered at much lower resolution. A cheaper, lighter, lower compute device that seems like it has immense visual quality. And for people to want to spend all of their time on the metaverse, they're going to expect full retina quality. That's what they want, a really immersive experience. The second aspect, of course, is around social, which is while we're in this metaverse, we want to interact with people the way we do now, naturally demonstrating attention, having avatars that are really lifelike. And of course, one aspect of that is being able to show what you pay attention to and where your eyes move. And our eye tracking technology enables lifelike avatars. This is why people like Mark Zuckerberg really believe in technologies that go and capture that into this digital world. He is super excited about the potential of eye tracking into these VR headsets. And you can see other examples of industry leaders who understand fully what eye tracking can enable or attention computing can enable inside these headsets to deliver these devices of the future. Why is this important to Tobii now? One, of course, is there's a tremendous amount of buzz, but that is actually paired with significant industry momentum. 2022 is going to be a really big year for virtual reality. A lot of it fueled or driving at the same time as this metaverse momentum that is picking up. You see the comment from the publication Tech Radar about rumors of multiple companies launching new products next year. This is a huge momentum change for this industry, because if all of these players come in with their shared resources, they are going to drive compelling experiences. What that means for the virtual reality market is a really healthy growth CAGR. The estimates from the industry is about 40% over the next 4 years. If you take that out into unit sales, it gets to a kind of market by 2030 that should be around 100 million units. It's a huge opportunity for us. And that's virtual reality. The really big opportunity, of course, that everyone has been excited for the last decade is augmented reality. And this is, of course, intended to be our computing platform of the future, the devices that replace smartphones. So if you look at the Tobii Opportunity, we have huge momentum building now, with 22 being a signal year for virtual reality. That, for us, potentially opens up a market where there's 100 million units that could be shipping by the end of 2030. And then we have our investments in the same space that are very much leverageable for the next big wave, which is augmented reality, which can unlock more than 1 billion devices per year. This is one of the 6 market opportunities we have. If we map that back to the company we think this means, from our perspective, we have an enormous TAM for us to actually go and address. Today, we are about a 600 million SEK per year company, but we think the market opportunity for us for attention computing as a whole in the future is more than 60 billion SEK a year. Huge, huge opportunity for us to go after. Now, how do we serve these markets? We talked a little bit about our core technology, but we have 2 major approaches which are important to understand. Part of our solutions are vertical in nature. They stem all the way from the hardware on the bottom to end user software. So that is a complete solution that we go deliver, and we deliver them into multiple markets, behavioral studies in some cases, education and training in others as well. And you can see an example of some of the products that we deliver in this space. The second approach that we have is truly a horizontal business, where we are delivering components or aspects of the full stack that get used by other companies that deliver the end products. And in this case, you can see VR headsets or a car that will harness attention computing. We believe that our approach of having both vertical and horizontal businesses is quite unique and actually puts us in a very good position to extract value in the space. By being in the vertical industries, we understand what attention computing is being used for. We also understand the dependencies between hardware, core signals, attention signals, and user value. That knowledge drives further innovation that we can push into our horizontal business. In that horizontal business, even though we don't deliver the full stack, our OEMs appreciate working with a partner who understands what the impact is of our solutions in the full stack to optimize the total solution for best cost. We're able to do that because we have vertical businesses that we can learn from. The scale of our horizontal businesses, of course, is a huge asset for our vertical businesses. Because in the horizontal space, we're building devices that can scale into millions of units. We're looking at signal robustness over full populations. And that, once again, in our vertical business, is an unmatched asset we can bring to bear. We think this approach helps us be in multiple vertical markets and really churn very good return on investment on our technology. Going forward, when we describe this to investors, we intend to actually showcase this in these 2 segments, reporting segments. One is OEM integration solutions that really cover the bulk of our horizontal offerings in the space, as well as end customer solutions that really speak to our vertical focus area here. So now, why are we going to win? We've talked about how big attention computing can be for us, a huge market. We've talked about some near-term opportunities. But of course, in this space, we should expect that there's going to be increased competition that we will face. Fundamentally for us, we believe that we are in pole position to win because of our assets that we've built over the last 2 decades. We have the strongest technology portfolio. We are the global leader in the space. Our brand value, our patent portfolio, these are things that customers appreciate when they're picking a solution provider to choose for technologies. We have a team that's over 600 people strong. And if you compare that to our nearest direct competitor, that's twice the size of anybody in the space. That means that we have larger engineering capabilities and we have larger go-to-market capabilities to be in these vertical areas as well as sell our full product portfolio. Our annual R&D investment is also quite significant. It's 300 million SEK. At our core, we are absolutely a technology company. If you add all of these pieces together, we believe we have unmatched domain expertise and integration experience. This is why we feel super confident of our position in this space, and we expect to build our position from being the world leader in eye tracking to also being the world leader in attention computing. From a business perspective, we've talked about our 6 verticals. We think we are now entering an era of sustained, faster than historical growth. And that will be a staged growth that we see. Where we are now, we believe that we are ready to scale behavioral studies and marketing, as well as gaming. In the next 1 to 3 years, we think our investments that we've made in the extended reality space will start to pay off as virtual reality scales, as well as education and training continues to mature. And then when you look farther into the future, we see some of our longer term bets also starting to hit their stride. Our investments into augmented reality, into automotive driver monitoring systems. We believe a business like healthcare, which has huge potential, will grow over time. And by the time we get to 3 to 5 years out, it will be a significant portion of the value that we're delivering back in. So what does this mean for the company? We talked about our historical CAGR. From the years 2014 to 2019, we delivered 20% organic revenue CAGR. We have a couple of years of COVID impact, but now we're exiting 2021, getting back to normal business metrics, back to our 2019 levels, and we are entering a phase of faster than historical growth. We believe that over the next decade, we are going to enjoy this kind of growth, and specifically our financial targets are that we intend to reach 1.5 billion SEK of revenue in 2025, and as part of executing that growth, that we will reach EBIT break even during 2023. So let me wrap up, and here are my key messages for all of you today. One is that Tobii is in a super exciting phase as a company. We are now in the next phase after the split from Dynavox, and our ambition level is different. We are the world leader in eye tracking, but we're also the pioneer in this new field of attention computing. We believe that attention computing has tremendous potential and represents a huge TAM for us to go address. We think our 20 years of experience, as well as our core capabilities and our current market penetration, puts us in a unique position to capture the opportunity that attention computing represents. And that finally, we are entering an era of sustained, faster than historical growth. That was it for me. Thank you all for your time. And back to questions, I guess.
Thank you, Anand, for this presentation. It's really, really interesting. Obviously, this is a huge opportunity for the future, and it seems. How do you focus on where you want to direct your attention? There seems to be, a vast, or what do you say, very many opportunities in different fields. Where do you see? How do you determine where to focus your attention?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The first part of it is actually around the market verticals that we've talked about. If you look at those 6 market verticals, those aren't the only places that Tobii's technologies are used today, but we think they merit focus. Now, the reason that we can actually be in these 6 market verticals is if you think of the technology that it takes to drive solutions in the space, we have a lot of commonality. We're able to use elements that we develop for gaming, for example, to also use them in behavioral studies and research or education and training. And so we're able to go and deliver that piece in a very efficient and resource constrained manner. The second part, of course, is to have the go-to-market engine that actually can be in all of these different market verticals. Yeah. So we've, of course, scaled for that. But ultimately, we do, of course, expect that each of these businesses is going to mature at a slightly different phase. And so you should expect that each of these different market verticals or market opportunities, our approach is slightly different based on where they are in maturity.
You described what's sort of the foundation of the value of a company, both when it comes to patents and technology, but also when it comes to the people working and the experience, the sort of the collective experience of the people at Tobii. Can those two sort of elements contribute to different approaches when it comes to commercialization? Some things perhaps very clearly driven by the patents, and others by your experience how to commercialize certain areas. And
yeah, I think there's two elements again when you think about the people. When we talk about user value at the top of our stack, that is much closer to commercialization, and it relies on core technology elements, as you see on hardware or core signals, that are quite common. When we think of our approach to the market, there are multiple things that we sell. In some cases, we are selling algorithms, system IP, or we could, of course, look at approaches with our patent portfolio. These are all within the space. But again, you're right that the people that we have, when we look at how we go and deliver the products from a user value perspective, that's the other approach we have where we're actually selling either full solutions or components into a particular vertical.
Yeah, and as you, I think one of the last slides of the presentation described your different products. I was going to ask you about perhaps sort of integrating further in the value chain, but there were some sort of end user products.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that people maybe don't always appreciate about Tobii is we actually have a broad portfolio. Many people think we're only a technology company. We're not. We are actually a company that provides a lot of software as well as hardware. We also have this horizontal portfolio that we sell into mass market type of customer bases, VR headsets being an example, or automotive OEM. But we also have these vertical type of solutions that are in different marketplaces.
May I ask, how do you view pricing and the strategy when it comes to pricing?
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of customizing your products is you're able to go in and tailor your product offering into each segment. And of course, the willingness to pay depends on the value that you're unlocking. So for example, the product that we sell into scientific research is dramatically different, full vertical solution versus what we sell from a component perspective. I think each of the silos have their own dynamics. And I think that there is good variation in what you can charge for. Depends on the device you're going into. Is
price ever an sort of a deal breaker? Or I mean, these sort of technologies, I guess, can transform the customer's experience so much that perhaps that is not the main focus. I mean, price up or down 10%, but or how important can it be? Or
yeah, I mean, fundamentally for an OEM business, total cost of ownership is super important, of which our price is one element. But this is, again, back to our understanding of the full stack can help us enable a solution that is effectively cheaper. Ultimately, at the end, of course, customer is going to choose based on the value that you develop. If you're delivering a lot of value, they're willing to pay you more. So that, I think, is the reality for all businesses. But again, we do recognize that different parts of our business work differently, but our focus is on delivering the best total cost of ownership.
When it comes to the sort of the term attention computing, I mean, this is all more or less based around vision, or to a large extent in a way. If you look at the other senses, say hearing, smell, how will this factor into the future going to sort of attention computing? Do you see any specific reasons why it perhaps is harder to integrate into these kind of systems? Or
yeah, I mean, if you think about our approach, we talked about our pedigree. We come from the computer vision space into eye tracking, into attention computing. But I mean, if you take the example today of how is attention computing delivered, there are other sensors and technologies already today, like hitting Control-Alt-Delete on your computer to wake it up, right? That's saying, I want you to pay attention to me, or saying, Alexa, to get your Amazon smart speaker to pay attention to you. We believe that gaze and some of the technologies that are related to that are foundational for attention computing, because that is how humans communicate attention. And actually, that is actually how our brains take in information. Most of the information that we pick up, 80% of it, comes from your vision systems. So we think that's the most important. But we do, of course, expect, and you should expect this from us, that as we expand our ambition into attention computing as a whole, there are other types of technologies and signals that we will continue to expand into to deliver the best solutions for the space.
Yeah, and when it comes to VR, AR, and so on, I guess it's all integrated to some extent.
Exactly.
One more question regarding, I think you mentioned the sort of possibility to determine intention. And all of these applications, as far as I can understand, they're pretty sort of close up to the person who are utilizing them in some way. But if you sort of look in a broader sense, I know the next company presenting today are looking at how you can perhaps determine intention from a distance on movement patterns and so on, perhaps in a security sort of setting. How is it possible to scan sort of eye patterns or eye movement patterns from a distance? Is that technology progressing also? I mean, that you could perhaps sense or sense intentions from afar based on eye patterns.
I think
or is that further in the future? Or?
Yeah, the limitations effectively is how good of an image do you have of somebody's eyes, and the farther away that you get physically, it's just a dependency on sort of the camera and being able to do the complicated mathematics around determining where people are looking.
Yes.
What we believe is, of course, in the age of augmented reality, this will be a huge benefit for people who are wearing these type of devices to get contextual information that you care about. You know, my favorite example is walking to a bus stop, and if you are looking at the bus stop because that's where your interest is, you're walking into that bus station, you know, a device can tell you when the next bus is arriving without you having to walk up to a screen and go and look at it. And that kind of information can feel like magic. How did it know? Because you're looking at the bus stop. We know what you're looking at. There may be other contextual information that they have that you're going somewhere, and you can come in and say, hey, your wait time is 4 minutes. I think that is how we perceive that these kinds of technologies likely will be developed and deployed.
Do you think that sort of the security market could be another end market where these kinds of technologies sort of become more and more important also, or is that?
It's I'm not 100% sure. Again, at this point in time, we don't see as much experimentation on the kind of market where you would look at as security. That tends to be a little bit more broad-based video or movement kind of things. So we don't necessarily see as much of that at this point in time. But again, I think that there are other areas where you could definitely see deployment of this technology.
And finally, where do you see Tobii in, say, a little bit longer perspective, maybe 5 or 7 years? Are there any sort of dramatic changes in your view to where the company will be then when it comes to mix or product focus and so on?
Yeah, I mean, as you see sort of where we are set up today, we have 2 types of products that we sell, or 2 types of basic models. One is where we are definitely vertical in some areas, and we think that there's a lot of growth in those markets as well, behavioral research, education, and training. But when you think 5 or 7 years out, we absolutely believe that some of the bets we're making around the larger mass market type of installations of our technology should be much more mature. So places like automotive DMS, augmented reality, and that of course changes the world and how attention computing is deployed and people perceive it all over the place. That's where the ubiquitousness of this technology will show up. So a few years of very strong growth ahead of us as a team. So thank you very much, Anand, for this presentation. Thank you. I appreciate it. And very warm welcome back to when it comes to the next presentation in a few minutes. Thank you. Thanks.